As I drive up the winding road to the remote cabin, rain is already falling, adding to the sense of déjà vu. It's been 3 years since I left, and we have not spoken since then. The rain steadily taps against the dashboard window as I navigate the familiar twists and turns. The evergreen trees stand tall, their branches reaching towards the rain-soaked clouds. The only sounds are the hum of the car and the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers. My mind races with thoughts of what it will be like to see him again. Perhaps he is married. It always seemed like the timing was off. One of us was always involved with someone else. We collaborated on multiple projects before spending weeks together caught up in our research, and now I'm back for another assignment. He's still stationed at the remote cabin in the woods overlooking the lake and mountains. It was a beautiful place when it rained. The lake would dance with ripples, and when it was sunny, a shimmering peace would reside. And the nights when the skies were clear were showered with twinkling stars. Often I would find myself not wanting to go home. We worked closely together gathering samples in the woods conducting research. I wanted more, but I never had the courage to tell him. Now driving up the road once again, I'm not even sure if he knew about my transfer. I simply left when his relationship with Natalie started getting serious. I couldn't bear it any longer. Drawing closer, the road leveled out, winding its way through the dense forest. The rain persisted, its steady rhythm a backdrop to my thoughts. Up ahead the cabin emerged, its windows casting a warm golden glow into the rainy afternoon. Wisps of smoke curled lazily from the chimney, blending with the misty air and adding to the cozy ambience. Despite the earlier warnings of an impending storm, the rain had stayed light, and the journey felt safe enough for me to venture into the woods to begin our assignment. The cabin overlooked a stunning turquoise lake, where we had often sat on the patio engrossed in our research notes and sharing laughter. The mountains looming in the distance, beyond the forest, always captivated us, their grandeur a constant source of wonder. Raindrops delicately tapped the water's surface like enchanting musical notes, forming small rings that danced in and out of existence. Pausing for a moment to admire this serene scene, I drew in a deep breath before proceeding towards his doorway. I knocked on the cabin door, waiting in suspense. The sound of the rain, the only thing calming my nerves. After a few moments of anticipation, the door opened revealing him standing there. In a gray slouchy beanie, his dirty blonde hair peeked out. A light stubble framing his jawline, lending him an extra touch of ruggedness. Wearing dark frame glasses, with a pen casually tucked between his lips and a research book in hand, he embodied the essence of a dedicated scientist, exuding an effortless confidence that I found undeniably appealing. He still looked as handsome as ever, effortlessly exuding the rugged outdoorsman style in his tricolored blue, brown, and turquoise flannel button-up shirt paired with copper-brown jeans. In that moment, as he removed the pen from his mouth and was just about to say hello, I found myself looking into his emerald green eyes for the first time in 3 years. They always had a lushness akin to the pine trees with a subtle splash of sunbeams filtering through the foliage. My emotions got the best of me, causing me to drop the research papers I had been cradling in my arms. Breaking our gaze, I knelt down on the floor and began gathering my papers. Sebastian putting down his book and quickly helping me gather my things. "Yeah, it's been a while. It's great to see you," I said as he stepped aside to let me into the cabin. As we collected the documents, I couldn't help but notice that there was no ring on his finger. Our hands grazed each other as we both reached to collect the pile of papers into a bundle, sending a spark of electricity through me, making the hairs on my arms and back stand up for a brief moment. Breaking the silence and trying to evade the heat rising into my face, I said in a hurried fashion, "I'm so sorry, I don't know what happened." "Don't worry about it," Sebastian said, trying to ease the situation as we both stood up from the floor. "How have you been? It's been so long," he began to ask. I looked into his eyes and hesitated to lean forward for a hug, stopping myself short and instead shifting the pile of papers into one arm and extending my hand out to shake his. I could feel it take him a second to register the situation, and he shook my hand reluctantly. "Yeah, it's been a while. It's great to see you," I said as he stepped aside to let me into the cabin. "Yeah, you too," he replied back politely. My heart still fluttering at the sight of him after so long. A rush of emotions swirling within me like a gentle breeze on a warm summer's night. My heart was pounding now inside my chest as if it were about to leap out. The intensity of my feelings almost overwhelming. The cabin was cozy. He had really made his workspace a home. A kitchenette adorned the back wall, boasting a beautiful black wood-burning stove nestled in the corner. 2 sofas were strategically placed on either side of the cabin, one by the small dining area and the other facing the windows, offering a picturesque view of the tranquil lake outside. A table near the doorway was cluttered with research papers and books, where he often sat engrossed in his work while enjoying the breathtaking scenery. A small ladder led up to a loft area where he slept. The air inside carried the refreshing scent of pine and cedar, mixed with the musky aroma of lingering wood smoke from the fireplace, along with the subtle fragrance of damp soil from the pouring rain outside. "How was the drive?" he asked, breaking the silence with an inquisitive tone. "It was good," I replied, considering how to engage in small talk. "The rain's light right now, but I heard the storm might be coming in a day or two," I added, glancing out the window at the rolling gray clouds drifting over the mountaintops. "Yeah," he responded quietly. "Should we get going?" I asked, feeling the weight of the lingering silence. "Yeah," he agreed. "Let me grab my things." He began to put his jacket and fill his backpack. As conservation scientists, we had been tasked with taking some samples of the surrounding lake areas, and Sebastian was going to show me some of the research he had conducted for our assignment. At first, I anticipated more awkwardness than what unfolded to my surprise. As we navigated through the forest, our conversation flowed with ease. We delved into our shared passion for our work, exploring the research he was conducting and the conclusions drawn from his analysis. Periodically, we would pause, catching our breath from the walk in the rain, our eyes meeting in silent understanding, accompanied by a fleeting smile. I often found myself averting my gaze when our eyes lingered too long, feeling the warmth rise in my neck despite the cool raindrops around us. In the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the thought of whether he would bring up Natalie or any other woman. I began biting my thumbnail, a physical manifestation of my internal conflict, urging myself to maintain professionalism and refrain from prying. Yet the longing to know if he was seeing anyone nagged at me. As we walked, I felt a rush of old emotions flooding through me. His voice once again, resonating with its calming, soothing, and undeniably romantic tone, stirred feelings of longing and nostalgia within me. It became increasingly evident how much I had missed him. I didn't have to think anymore, because in a moment of silence between our conversation he blurted, "Are you seeing anyone?" he asked, not looking at me, but at the forest floor. It crossed my mind to say sort of, but I gambled and told the truth. "No." "You? How's Natalie?" I asked, throwing it out casually and feeling relieved to cast the elephant out from between us. It seemed to catch him off guard, but from my earlier response, he also seemed content with my previous answer. "Oh, that ended a long time ago. She decided to pursue acting, actually, and we haven't really talked since then." Wow, for once we were both single, I thought. As we approached the forest's edge on the far side of the lake, the clouds above the mountains darkened, signaling an impending storm. Sebastian, sensing the change in weather, suggested we return to the cabin before the storm hit. While standing by the lakeside, I gazed towards the mountains, reminiscing about the spot where we once witnessed a shooting star together. It was a moment that nearly led to a kiss between us. Sebastian, noticing my reflective silence, finished collecting the specimens and seemed to share in the memory. "Do you remember that night we saw the shooting star together?" he asked softly. "Yes, it's like déjà vu, but with rain." I chuckled, attempting to make it feel casual. Although inside that memory could have been a pivotal moment for us. "I still remember it," he added under his breath. I turned to look at Sebastian, but he avoided meeting my gaze, instead directing his attention toward the mountains where a shooting star had once graced the sky in both of our memories. Perhaps he believed I hadn't heard him, or maybe he thought he had made a subtle remark that we weren't yet prepared to discuss. As we both continued to collect the remaining samples from the lake and soil, I didn't notice that I had stepped on a slippery stone at the water's edge. I nearly fell backward before I felt him grab my waist and pull me towards him. Momentum offered a gentle push in the right direction, finding ourselves in an intimate embrace as he stumbled backward. "That was close," I said, my heart racing as I locked eyes with him, grateful for his swift action. Slowly I backed away, my gaze drifting to the forest floor, still feeling the lingering warmth of his touch. "Thanks," I managed to say, my voice filled with genuine appreciation. "Don't mention it," he replied quietly, his eyes holding a depth I couldn't quite decipher. Without another word, we started making our way back to the cabin, the rain growing heavier and the distant rumble of thunder echoing through the forest, a reminder of the storm fast approaching. Heading back to the cabin, Sebastian fell silent, and so did I. My mind was abuzz with the thoughts about the moment we shared by the lake, unexpected questions lingering in my mind. Where could all of this be leading us? By the time we reached the cabin, our clothes were drenched despite our supposedly waterproof jackets. "I guess we should have brought umbrellas," he joked as he unlocked the cabin door and gently ushered me inside, his hand resting warmly on my back. The rush of warm air and scent of cedar welcomed us like an invisible embrace as we stepped inside, shedding our jackets and shoes, and retreating into the cozy interior of the cabin. The weather outside had taken a drastic turn for the worse, with the wind howling and the rain intensifying by the minute. Lightning streaked across the darkened sky, followed by booming thunder that reverberated through the forest. The tall evergreen trees swayed ominously, their branches bending under the force of the gust. Sebastian noticed that my long-sleeved top was completely drenched, as was his. Without hesitation, he offered me a change of clothes. I hadn't anticipated getting so wet, and for a moment I considered heading back to my hotel. However, the thought of spending more time with him at the cabin was too tempting to resist. Sebastian handed me a towel to dry off my hair and offered me a flannel shirt to change into. As I gratefully accepted his gesture, memories of our past friendship flooded back, making it feel as though the 3 years apart had melted away in an instant. As I unbuttoned my drenched shirt, I felt his gaze upon me, a soft warmth that made my heart skip a beat. Maintaining an air of nonchalance, I stood in my snug tank top, pretending not to notice his attention, but secretly reveling in it. Grabbing his flannel shirt, I pulled it over me, relishing the comforting embrace it offered infused with his scent. Across from me, Sebastian also began to shed his soaked clothing. Removing his beanie and glasses, his hands ran through his tousled hair in a playful gesture, eliciting a fond smile from me. Respecting his privacy, I turned aside, though I couldn't resist stealing glances, captivated by his every move. With each layer he shed, revealing his toned chest and abdomen, a soft blush tinted my cheeks, a fluttering feeling stirring within me. "I'll go make us some tea. That should warm us up," Sebastian said, slipping completely into his dry t-shirt. I offered him a warm smile, then sighed to myself, a silent gesture to calm my nerves. Finding a seat by the window, I peered outside, watching the tempest rage on. Suddenly the lights went dark, the power had gone out. "Maybe I should get going," I blurted. "In this weather it's not safe to be driving with the winds blowing like that through the trees." "It's safer if you wait it out," he said, reassuringly as he began to light some candles in the room. It was dark now within the cabin, illuminated only by the soft glow of a dozen candles and the comforting warmth radiating from the wood-burning stove, which now began to boil a kettle for our tea. Occasionally, a flash of lightning would pierce through the darkness, casting bright light and dancing shadows onto the walls. Sebastian, who had been pacing anxiously as if he wasn't sure where to sit, finally took a seat across from me. We then engaged in pleasant conversation, catching up on the last 3 years of our lives, and discussing mutual co-workers and the research we were working on. As the storm raged outside, I couldn't help but shiver a bit, prompting Sebastian to drape a blanket across my shoulders. "Thanks," I said, grateful for the small gesture of warmth and comfort. He was always so attentive, something that had undoubtedly drawn me to him years ago. The kettle began to rumble with a boil, and he got up to take it off the stovetop. After preparing the cups of tea, he brought them over, offering me one as he took his seat across from me. I noticed a guitar leaning on the other end of the sofa. "You play?" I asked in a cheerful tone. "Yeah, just a little," he replied humbly. "Play something for me," I said, a gentle smile forming on my lips. He seemed hesitant at first, but then got up and picked up the guitar, biting the bottom of his lip in contemplation. He glanced at me with a mischievous look, his eyes narrowing in a playful manner as he began to strum the guitar. I instantly recognized it as one of my favorite childhood songs. I couldn't believe it. I remembered mentioning it to him once a long time ago in passing. I was touched that he remembered. At first he watched his fingers strumming the guitar, seemingly avoiding eye contact with me. But I couldn't help but look at him, noticing how his tousled hair fell forward and the softness in his eyes as he gazed into the distance. Finally, he looked up from the guitar strings and into my eyes as you played the last verse. Just then another rumble of thunder stirred the atmosphere, and I could hear the wind howling loudly outside the window. Then a flash of lightning entering the room. Sebastian stopped strumming the guitar, and we both looked out the window amazed at the tempest, and we could see sparks of lightning just at the cusp of the mountaintops. It was captivatingly beautiful, and we felt safe in the warmth of the glowing fireplace and the candles that continued to burn. And for the first time since we entered the cabin, Sebastian made his way over to my side of the sofa to get a closer look at the storm outside. Seated now right beside me, he was close enough that I could smell the fragrance of his cologne. Although we both looked out the window together, mesmerized by the streaks of lightning, there were stolen glances to each other as the moment passed. As the lightning danced across the sky, illuminating the room with its fleeting brilliance, we turned to each other, drawn together by the intimacy of the moment. His gaze held mine, searching, as if seeking permission to speak the words that lingered unspoken between us. But with a subtle gulp, instead of dwelling into the depths of our unspoken desires, he proposed something simple yet charming. How about a game? His suggestion, though seemingly mundane, carried with it an undertone of longing, a desire to extend our time together amidst the storm's turmoil. Retrieving a wooden board and checker pieces from an end table, he invited me to join him in a playful diversion. As we engaged in the game, playful competitiveness hummed in the air, punctuated by the occasional rumble of thunder and flash of lightning. I couldn't help but find myself drawn to him, gently nudging his shoulder whenever he overtook me in the game of checkers. My hand lingering on his arm, a moment longer than necessary, my fingertips slipping down his arm affectionately. In those stolen moments, our eyes met, conveying a depth of emotion that words could not express. We pretended to be thinking of our next move, and we were, but there was fun in the back and forth flirtatious winks and cunning smiles. The flickering of candlelight, casting soft shadows across his face, accentuating the warmth and depth in his eyes. As the night wore on and the storm raged outside, we lost ourselves in conversation, sharing stories of our past, our dreams, and our hopes for the future. Sebastian ended up reheating a bowl of chowder he had made the night before and joked about it being a cheesy candlelight dinner. Amidst the gentle crackle of the fireplace and the soothing patter of rain against the window pane, it felt like a first date. As we finished our bowls of chowder, there lingered a moment of silence with only the sound of the crackling firewood burning within the wooden stove and the gentle patter of raindrops on the rooftop. "Why did you leave?" His voice, though soft, carried a weight of disappointment and longing. "What do you mean?" I responded, feigning innocence. Those questions struck a chord within me. "I don't know. One day you are here, and the next I hear from the office that you've been transferred. You didn't even let me know. You know, I thought we were friends." His words hung in the air, a blend of statement and inquiry, laced with a touch of hurt that pierced through me. I took a gulp and my mouth opened to speak, but the only thing that came out was a sigh. Was I ready for this conversation? I kept my eyes out the window, unable to meet his gaze as he looked at me for a reassuring answer. The storm was starting to wane. He sat there for a moment, seemingly trying to understand me, and then he began to pull the blanket over my shoulders and brush the strands of hair from across my face, tucking them behind my ears as he gazed into my eyes with a longing affection. I bury my hands in my face, unable to say anything. A tear begins to trickle down my cheek, realizing how much I cared for him and all the feelings I had felt when I decided to leave. It seemed like Sebastian knew. "I guess we both could have said something back then," he said, gently helping me lower my hands from my face. I closed my eyes as tears streamed down my cheeks. When I opened them, I found myself looking into his eyes, teary-eyed and vulnerable. "I really wanted to, but you were with Natalie and—" He gently placed his index finger on my lips, silencing me, understanding the vulnerability in my voice. As we paused in this moment, the storm outside appeared to have stopped as the clouds began to part, revealing the sunrise as it gently cascaded into the cabin through the windows. We had talked all night, and now even the storm outside seemed to mirror the flow of our rekindling. He held both my hands and looked into my eyes, then gently wiped the tears from my face. This time I maintained my gaze, feeling the longing in both our hearts. He looked at me, waiting for a cue, and as I swallowed and caught my breath, I leaned in towards his lips. I could feel his hand on my lap, the other gently grazing my neck before moving behind my head. My hands reached for his face, cradling his jawline and soft stubble as we both leaned in. His hands shifted from my lap to the small of my back. The soft touch of our lips meeting melted my insides, and as I ran my fingers through his hair, I could feel our connection building. The scent of his cologne heightened the moment, and the burden in our hearts dissipated, manifesting into the desire and warmth of this long-awaited kiss. As the sun streams into the room, we melt away from the embrace. He cradles my head in his hands, planting kisses on both my cheeks, and then he steals another on my lips before pulling away slowly, leaving me wanting more. The intensity of our physical attraction is almost unable to contain itself. With intense desire in his eyes and a heavy breath, he leans over into my ear and whispers softly, I wish I could make this moment last forever, but there's something I want to share with you." He smiles, reluctantly breaking the moment. He presses his lips against my forehead as he stands up, his touch lingering, before gently taking my hand and guiding me toward the cabin entrance. "I've always imagined showing you one day, and now I don't want you to miss it." As we step outside and settle on the patio bench, his arm draped around my shoulder as I nestle into his chest. In the silence, a shared appreciation, the beauty of the moment washes over us as we bask in the warmth of the rising sun. This time we finally got the timing right. As we watch the sunlight shimmer over the lake,